My name is Renee Brooks. I'm 32 years old. 5 years ago, I picked up the phone and reported my brother to the police. And my family never spoke to me again. My mother called me a destroyer. My father said I was no daughter of his. My sister, Paige, my own sister, called me a liar on Facebook for the entire town to see. I was erased from the group chat, from Thanksgiving, from every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday dinner at the house on Maple Ridge Road. For 5 years, I was alone, but here's what none of them knew. I wasn't the only one. There were 7 others, all inside our family, and every single one of them had been keeping the same secret. What happened in that courtroom changed everything. But first, let me take you back to the beginning. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where families who chose silence learn that the truth has its own timeline. If you're new here, stick around. You're going to want to hear how this one ends. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, let's get into it. I grew up in Millbrook, New York. Population 12,000. The kind of town where your neighbors know your business before you do, and the grocery store cashier remembers your mother's maiden name. The Brooks family was a fixture. My parents, Diane and Gerald, had lived on Maple Ridge Road for 31 years. Same house, same church, same pew, third row back, Methodist. Every single Sunday, there were 4 of us kids. Travis was the oldest, then me, then Paige, then Russell the baby who moved to Colorado at 18 and barely came back. Travis was the golden child. No exaggeration, he opened an auto repair shop at 25 Brooks & Sons Automotive, and within 3 years he employed 14 people. He sponsored the Little League team. He donated to the church roof fund. People in Millbrook didn't just like Travis, they relied on him. My father relied on him, too. When Dad retired from the plant at 56, Travis took over the mortgage, $2,400 a month. Dad never said thank you out loud, but he didn't need to. Travis could do no wrong in that house. And me, I was the quiet one. Finished nursing school at 22 with $47,000 in student loans. No help from home. I worked at Millbrook Urgent Care, pulling 12-hour night shifts and paying my own rent on an apartment 8 minutes from my parents' house. Every night the group chat would light up. The Brooks family, all of us on iMessage. Mom would send a message. Travis always replied first, then Paige, then me. Travis always knew what to say to make everyone feel comfortable. That was his gift. I used to admire it. I didn't know yet what else he was capable of. At 27, my life was small and steady. I liked it that way. I'd get to the clinic by 6:45 p.m. clock-in. 12 hours of sprains, fevers, chest pains, and crying toddlers. Clock out at 7:00 a.m., drive home in the gray light. Sleep until 3, do it again. My apartment was nothing special. 1 bedroom above a dentist's office on Route 9. The heat clanked, the windows stuck in summer, but it was mine, and I paid for it myself, and nobody could take that from me. On the hook by the front door, I kept a red wool scarf. My grandmother knitted it for me when I was 10, the last Christmas before she passed. The yarn had faded from crimson to something closer to rust, and one end was starting to unravel, but I never replaced it. That scarf was the only thing I owned that felt like home when home stopped feeling safe. I still went to Sunday dinners, sat in my usual chair, passed the rolls, laughed at Dad's jokes, helped Mom dry the dishes. I wasn't close with Travis. We didn't fight. We didn't bond. We just existed in the same orbit, 2 planets with different gravities. He ran the shop. I ran my shift, different worlds. If you'd asked me then to describe myself, I'd have said, I'm not the loudest person in the room, never have been, I do my job, I go home, I mind my business. That's who I was. That November, something changed. Not gradually, not with warning. It happened in one overheard sentence at a Thanksgiving dinner, and after that, there was no going back. Thanksgiving. My parents' kitchen. I was at the counter slicing pie when I heard Megan's voice from the hallway. Megan was 17, my Uncle Russell's daughter, the cousin I only saw at holidays. Quiet kid, kept to herself, always had earbuds in. She was talking to Paige. I wasn't trying to listen, but the kitchen was small and Megan was crying and certain words cut through walls. Paige's voice came back low and sharp. Don't make this a thing. Just don't be alone with him. The knife stopped in my hand. Don't be alone with him. I set the knife down, wiped my hands, walked past the hallway like I was heading for the bathroom. Paige saw me and went quiet. Megan wiped her face with her sleeve and walked the other way. After dinner, I found Megan on the back porch. She was sitting on the steps, arms wrapped around herself, breath fogging in the cold. I sat down next to her, didn't say anything for a minute. Then, Megan, you can talk to me, she told me. I drove home, sat in my car in the parking lot for 40 minutes, engine off, hands on the wheel. The porch light from the dentist's office threw a yellow stripe across my dashboard. I looked up at the hook where my red scarf hung, visible through the window. That scarf was the only warmth in the whole building. The next morning, I called the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. A woman named Detective Erin Walsh met me at the station. She had a yellow legal pad and a calm voice. Ange wrote down everything I told her, every word. Then she looked up. This is going to be hard. Are you sure? I was sure. The investigation moved fast. Travis was questioned within 72 hours. And within 72 hours, my phone rang. It was 9:14 p.m. I was putting on scrubs for my shift. My mother's name lit up the screen. I picked up, and before I could say hello, Diane Brooks delivered the 6 words that would define the next 5 years of my life. You're destroying this family. Not, is it true? Not, what happened? Not, are you okay? You're destroying this family, I tried to explain. Mom, Megan told me herself. Megan is a teenager. Teenagers exaggerate. You should know better. I pressed my back against the bathroom wall and closed my eyes. This isn't something a teenager makes up. Travis has done nothing but good for this family, she said. Her voice was flat, rehearsed, like she'd already practiced this speech before calling me. He pays your father's mortgage. He employs half the men in this town. What do you think happens when you take that away? Mom, you could have come to me first. You could have handled this privately. Instead, you called the police like he's some kind of criminal. I didn't say what I was thinking. I let the silence sit. Then she gave me the ultimatum. Pull the report. Tell the detective it was a misunderstanding or don't come home for Christmas. I can't do that, Mom. Then don't come home for Christmas. The line went dead. I stood in my bathroom for a long time. The scrubs were cold against my skin. My shift started in 40 minutes. I put on my shoes. I drove to work. I clocked in. And that was the last time my mother spoke to me for 5 years. The next morning, my father called. I picked up, hopping for something different. A question, a pause, anything. Gerald Brooks gave me 8 words and a dial tone. No daughter of mine would do this. Click. I stared at the phone. 8 words. 35 years of being his kid, and 8 words was all I got. That afternoon, Paige posted on Facebook. She didn't tag me, but she didn't need to. Everyone in Millbrook knew exactly who she meant. Some people will do anything for attention, even destroy their own brother. Disgusting. 231 likes, 47 comments, 1 from my mother. A single heart emoji. The next week was worse. At work, a patient looked at me across the exam table and said, "You're the one who then stopped herself, but I heard the rest in her silence." The case moved forward for 6 weeks. Then it stopped. Megan was 17. Her parents, my Uncle Russell and his wife, pressured her to recant. They didn't use the word recant. They used the word clarify. Same result. Without corroborating testimony, the DA couldn't build a case. The charges were dropped. Travis went back to the shop, back to church, back to Sunday dinners. The town exhaled. A misunderstanding, a jealous sister, a teenage girl who exaggerated. Case dismissed. Detective Walsh called me the day it happened. Her voice was careful. "I'm sorry, Renee. I believe you, but I can't move forward without more." I nodded into the phone like she could see me. "I'm keeping this file open," she said. "If anything changes, I'll be here." That was December of 2021. I didn't know it then, but the clock had just started ticking. The exile was surgical. First, the group chat. I watched my name disappear from the Brooks family on a Tuesday afternoon while I was eating lunch at my desk. 1 second, I was in. The next, the thread was gone. 27 years of belonging deleted with 1 swipe. Then Christmas. I drove past my parents' house on Christmas Eve and saw the cars in the driveway. Paige's Jetta, Travis's truck, Mom's Buick, lights in every window. I kept driving. Then my birthday in February. No call, no card, no text. For the first time in 28 years, Diane Brooks did not wish me a happy birthday. The town followed the family's lead. The woman at the post office stopped making eye contact. The barista at Grounds and Glory started spelling my name wrong on purpose. Renee, Raina, Rain, small cruelties from small people. I wrote my mother a letter 3 pages. I explained why I reported. I told her I loved her. I told her I'd rather lose every holiday than stay silent. She never replied. I mailed Paige a gift for her 25th birthday, a bracelet from the craft fair she used to drag me to every summer. The box came back 2 weeks later, unopened. Returned to sender. I held the box in my hands for a long time. The tape was still smooth. The bow was still tied. She hadn't even looked inside. I set it on my kitchen counter and stared at it while the coffee got cold. I had 2 choices: stay in a town that had chosen my brother's silence over my truth, or leave everything I knew behind. I chose the second one. March, a Wednesday. I loaded my car before sunrise. The apartment above the dentist's office was empty. I'd cleaned it twice. Once because it needed it. Once because I needed something to do with my hands. The walls had lighter squares where my pictures used to hang. The kitchen counter had a ring from my coffee mug that wouldn't come out no matter how hard I scrubbed. I took the red scarf off the hook by the door and wrapped it around my neck. The yarn smelled like nothing now. Not like Grandma's house, not like lavender, not like anything. But I could still feel the weight of it. I locked the door, dropped the key in the landlord's mailbox, got in my car, 3 hours north to Albany, 1 suitcase, 1 box of books, a nursing license, and 0 family members who would answer my calls. It didn't look in the rearview mirror when I crossed the town line. I didn't cry. I didn't turn on the radio. I just drove. The next 5 years of my life fit into 3 sentences. I worked. I healed. And I built a life that no one could take from me. Albany was gray and loud and anonymous. I loved it. I got a job at Albany Medical Center within 2 weeks. Night shift, same hours, different building. Nobody knew my name and nobody knew my brother's. And that was the best thing that had happened to me in months. The first 2 years were survival. I rented a studio on Washington Avenue with radiator heat and a window that faced a brick wall. I ate oatmeal for dinner 3 nights a week. I paid my loans on time every single month. 47,000 whittled down to 39, then 32, then 26. I started studying for my nurse practitioner certification, evenings at the library, weekends in the study room, clinicals at a free clinic in the South End. I passed on the first attempt. I also started therapy every Tuesday at 5. My therapist's name was Dr. Lindgren, and she had a habit of saying things that landed like stones in still water. One session, about 6 months in, I told her I felt like I'd broken my family. She put her pen down and looked at me. "You didn't break your family, Renee. The silence did." I wrote that sentence on a sticky note and put it on my bathroom mirror. It stayed there for 3 years. I started running. First a mile, then 3, then a 5K, then a half marathon in Saratoga. I crossed the finish line alone and I thought, this is what it feels like to be proud of yourself without needing anyone's permission. I didn't call home. I didn't check Facebook. I didn't Google my brother's name. I was building something new, and I refused to let the old foundation crack it. I met Marcus Thompson in the waiting room of my own clinic. He'd cut his hand on a piece of rebar at a construction site. 3 stitches, nothing serious. He was 32, calm, polite, and he kept apologizing for bleeding on the chair. "It's an urgent care," I told him. "Bleeding is kind of the point." He laughed. I noticed he had kind eyes and a voice that didn't rush. He came back 2 weeks later to get the stitches out, and then again a week after that with a question about a tetanus shot that we both knew he didn't actually need. We got coffee, then dinner, then Saturday mornings at the farmer's market where he'd carry the bags and I'd pick out the tomatoes, and neither of us talked about anything heavy. 3 months in, he asked about my family. I said, "I don't really talk to them." He nodded. Okay, that was it. No follow-up, no prying, just okay. 6 months in, I told him everything. We were on his couch, and the words came out like they'd been waiting. I told him about Megan, about the phone call, about my mother's 6 words, about the box that came back unopened. Marcus listened to all of it. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react with shock or anger or pity. When I finished, he was quiet for a 10 count. And then he said 3 words. You did the right thing. 3 words, 5 syllables. And it was the first time anyone in my life had said them. We got married the following spring. Small ceremony in a park by the Hudson. 12 guests, his parents, his college friends, my 2 coworkers. No one from my side. I found out later what happened that summer. Megan Brooks was 22 by then, sophomore at SUNY News, studying psychology. She'd transferred twice and taken a year off, the kind of academic record that looks scatter-red from the outside, but makes perfect sense when you know the inside. For a class on developmental trauma, her professor assigned a research exercise. Find a published case study or news article about a topic related to the course. Analyze it, write a reflection. Megan went to the library database. She typed in keywords, and then on instinct she typed something else. Travis Brooks Millbrook. The article was small, buried in the Millbrook Gazette archive from 5 years earlier. 6 paragraphs. No phode. Local man questioned in connection with misconduct allegations. No charges filed. Megan stared at the screen. She read the article twice. She recognized my name. I was referred to as a family member who reported the allegations to authorities. She sat in that library chair for 45 minutes. Then she pulled up the browser and searched for the Dutchess County Sheriff's non-emergency line. She didn't call her mother. She didn't call Russell. She didn't call Diane or Paige or anyone in the Brooks family. Sheckled the number at the bottom of the article. Detective Aaron Walsh picked up. I wouldn't learn about this phone call for another 14 months. By then, 6 more people would have made the same call. But Megan was first. Megan, the girl who'd been crying in the hallway 5 Thanksgivings ago, the one Paige told to keep quiet. She wasn't keeping quiet anymore. By the time I turned 31, my life in Albany looked like someone else's story. Marcus and I bought a small Cape Cod in Delmare, 15 minuta south of the city. 3 bedrooms, a leaky basement, and a backyard with an oak tree that dropped acorns on the roof every October like clockwork. We paid $2,200 a month on a 30-year fixed. We could afford it because we both worked and neither of us had anyone to bail us out if we couldn't. I was a nurse practitioner at a private family clinic on Western Avenue, Monday through Friday. No more night shifts. I had my own patients, my own schedule, my own stethoscope with my initials etched in Toth Bell, and I was pregnant. Lily was due in May. The life was good. It was mine. But every Thanksgiving, I set the table for 2 and felt the chairs that should have been full. I didn't miss the people who hurt me. I missed the family I thought I had. There's a difference, and it's the kind of difference that keeps you up at 3:00 a.m., even when everything else is fine. One afternoon in April, a birthday card arrived in the mail. No return address, just a cream envelope with my name in shaky cursive. Inside, a card with daisies on the front and 1 line of handwriting. Thinking of you, Aunt Linda, my mother's older sister, the only person in the Brooks orbit who'd never publicly attacked me, and the only one who'd never publicly defended me either. I put the card in my nightstand drawer and closed it. I thought that was the closest I'd ever get to family again. I was wrong. What I'm about to tell you I pieced together later from Detective Walsh, from court records, from conversations I had after the trial. At the time, I knew none of it. After Megan's call, Walsh reopened the file. She pulled out the same yellow legal pad she'd used 5 years earlier. My original statement was still in there. Page 1, blue ink, November 21st, 2021. She started making new calls, careful ones, quiet ones. She reached out to extended members of the Brooks family, second cousins, nieces. People who lived in other towns and didn't talk to Millbrook anymore. The second person to come forward was Bethany. She was 20, Russell's youngest. She'd been 11 when it started. The third was a niece on my mother's side, someone I'd met maybe twice at family reunions. She was 19. She'd been 9, then a 4th, a 5th, a 6th. Each one came in alone. Each one sat in Walsh's office and said some version of the same sentence. I thought I was the only one. Walsh wrote their names in the yellow legal pad, one per line, black ink. Now she'd switched pens somewhere in year 3, but the pad was the same. 7 names. 7 people who had carried the same silence, some for over a decade. They didn't know about each other. They didn't coordinate. They just one by one decided they were done being quiet. The 7th name on that list would be the one that wrecked me, but I didn't know that yet. I was in Delmare feeding Lily mashed bananas and watching Marcus assemble a bookshelf. And I had no idea that 200 miles south, the walls of the Brooks family were finally starting to crack. You know, there's something about silence that people don't understand. It doesn't protect anyone. It just gives the person who caused the harm more time, more access, more room to operate. If you're watching this and you've ever been the one person in your family willing to say the uncomfortable truth out loud, I see you. You're not alone in that. And if this story is hitting close, drop a comment below. Let's keep going. August. Lily was 3 months old. I was sitting on the living room floor doing tummy time with her when Marcus brought in the mail. "There's a thick one for you," he said. No return address. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. Aunt Linda. Inside the envelope, 2 pages of handwritten letter and 8 pages of printed screenshots. Color copies timestamped from the group chat. The Brooks family. The letter was short. Linda's handwriting shook in places. "Renee, I should have spoken sooner. I'm sorry. I can't keep pretending anymore. I need you to see what they said about you after you left. I need you to understand what I've been living inside for the past 4 years. And I need you to know I'm done." I unfolded the screenshots. The first was from the week I left Millbrook. "My mother, she's dead to me. We will not speak her name in this house." Paige replying 6 minutes later. "She's always been jealous of Travis. Everyone knows it. Gerald, nothing. Not one message in the entire thread defending me. Not one question, not one. Maybe we should hear her out. Just silence." His silence sat in that group chat like a locked door. But the one that stopped my breathing was from 3 years ago. A message from Diane to Aunt Linda sent privately but screenshotted by Linda before she could delete it. "Linda, if you talk to Renee, you're next. I mean it." That's why Linda waited 4 years. Not because she didn't care, because my mother threatened her. I set the pages on the coffee table. Lily was babbling on the floor, grabbing her toes, oblivious to the fact that her grandmother had called her mother dead. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I was past crying about the Brooks family. I folded the letter. I put the screenshots in a drawer and I picked up my daughter. I called Linda that evening after Marcus put Lily down. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. I sat on the back porch with a blanket around my shoulders and listened to a 62-year-old woman unravel 12 years of silence. Linda told me she'd known since Travis was 23. A younger cousin, someone I barely remembered, had told Linda at a family barbecue, pulled her aside by the cooler, whispered it, begged her not to tell anyone. Linda told Diane, "One conversation, kitchen table, coffee getting cold." Diane's response, "You misheard. Drop it." Linda dropped it. Not because she believed Diane, because Diane was her only sister and Linda couldn't survive the idea of losing her. So she folded the truth into a small square and tucked it away. "The way you put a bill you can't afford into the back of a drawer and hope it disappears. I've been carrying this for 12 years, Renee," she said. Her voice cracked on the number. 12 years. I pressed the phone to my ear. I could hear her breathing through the static. "You were the brave one," she said. "You were always the brave one, and I was too scared to stand next to you." I didn't have it in me to be angry at Linda. She was another person my mother had silenced. Another person who'd been given the same impossible choice, the truth or the family, and chosen the family. I'd made a different choice, and it cost me everything. At the end of the call, Linda said one more thing. "There are others, Renee. I don't know how many, but there are others." I closed my eyes, held the phone against my cheek. "I know," I said. "I didn't, not really." But somewhere in my chest, I'd always known. That night after Linda hung up, I couldn't sleep. Marcus was breathing steady beside me. Lily's white noise machine hummed from the nursery. The house was quiet. My mind was not. I got up and went to the closet. In the back, behind a box of maternity clothes I'd meant to donate, there was a smaller box, brown cardboard, no label. I'd sealed it when we moved in and hadn't opened it since. Inside my nursing school diploma, a photo of me and Paige at the county fair. Age 12 and 9, a birthday card from my dad with a $20 bill still inside, and the red scarf. I pulled it out. The wool was thinner than I remembered. The color had faded past rust into something almost pink. One end was frayed to threads. I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, and wrapped it around my hands. I cried, first time in 2 years, not the polite kind. The kind that comes from your stomach, that makes your whole body shake, that you have to press a towel against your mouth to keep from waking the baby. I wasn't crying for what they did to me. I was crying for the 27-year-old who left Millbrook with nothing but this scarf and a nursing license. She deserved better than what her family gave her. I was going to make sure she got it. I washed my face, put the scarf back in the box, went to bed. In the morning, Lily woke me up at 5:15, and the day started like any other. 6 months passed. Lily took her first steps in October, holding on to the edge of the coffee table and letting go like she'd been planning it all week. Marcus recorded it. I cried again, but the good kind. I got a raise at the clinic. We paid off the car. Marcus started coaching a youth basketball team on Saturday mornings. It planted tomatoes in the backyard that died within a month because I forgot to water them. Normal life, simple life, the kind of life I'd spent 5 years earning the right to have. I didn't call Linda again. We'd said what needed saying. There was nothing left to add. And sometimes the most respectful thing two people can do is let a conversation end. Twice that fall, my phone buzzed with calls from a Millbrook area code. I didn't pick up. Both times the voicemail was empty, just 4 seconds off silence and a click. I deleted them. Winter came. Lily turned 1. We had a party. Marcus' parents, 2 couples from the neighborhood, a cake with a single candle. Lily stuck her whole fist in the frosting, and everyone laughed. And for 1 full hour, I didn't think about Millbrook or my mother or the group chat or the word destroyed. It was a good hour. And then on a Tuesday morning in March, my phone rang. The caller ID said, Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before I answered. Renee, this is Detective Walsh. I sat down on the kitchen floor right there next to Lily's high chair with a spoonful of yogurt still in my hand. I told you 5 years ago I'd call if anything changed. She said something changed. My pulse went loud in my ears. Lily smacked the tray and said, Mama, and I couldn't respond. 7 individuals have come forward independently over the past 14 months. Walsh said all family members all reporting the same person. All consistent, 7. I pressed my free hand flat against the tile. I needed to feel something solid. The district attorney is convening a grand jury, Walsh continued. We're going to trial, Renee. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I tried again. Who are they? I can't share names yet. But I want you to know your report 5 years ago is what started this. Your name appears in every single one of their statements. You're the reason they came forward. I looked at Lily. She was licking yogurt off her fingers, completely unaware that the phone call I was holding had just split my life into before and after. I still have my notes from your case, Renee. Same yellow pad. I almost laughed. Almost. What do you need from me? I asked. Your testimony if you're willing. I watched Lily drop a Cheerio on the floor and look at it with genuine surprise, like gravity was a new concept. I'm willing, I said. I hung up. Set the phone on the counter, stared at the ceiling for a long time. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel relief. I felt heavy because 7 meant 7 childhoods, 7 silences, and I'd only known about 1. Marcus came home at 6:12. I was sitting at the kitchen table. Lily was napping. The yogurt was still on the high chair tray, dried into a crust. He looked at my face and set his bag down slowly. What happened? Walsh called. C people came forward. They're going to trial. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat across from me. He didn't speak for a while. Then 7. He put his hand on the table, palm up. I put mine in it. This isn't a victory, I said. This is 7 people who were hurt and nobody stopped it, including me. I reported once and I left. You didn't leave. You were pushed out. Maybe, but I could have fought harder. I could have stayed. I could have gone door to every cousin and aunt and Renee. He squeezed my hand. You were 27 years old. You went to the police. Your entire family turned on you. Your own mother told you she'd disown you. You did more than anyone else in that family was willing to do. I knew he was right, but knowing and feeling are 2 different zip codes, and I was stuck at the border. That Thursday, I sat in Dr. Lindgren's office and told her about the call. She listened with her hands folded the way she always did. You cannot hold yourself responsible for a system that was designed to silence you, she said. I peeled the cuticle on my thumb until it bled. They were children, I said. And you tried to help and the system failed, and now the system is trying again. 2 weeks later, a manila envelope arrived from the Dutchess County DA's office. Inside was a subpoena. I was being called to testify. The grand jury indicted Travis on 11 counts. The Millbrook Gazette ran it on the front page. First time a Brooks had been on the front page for anything other than a Little League sponsorship. Deanne went into overdrive. I heard this from Linda, who heard it from a cousin in town. My mother called every family member she could reach. The script was always the same. This is a misunderstanding. Travis would never. These girls are confused. These girls like it was a club, like they'd organized. Then my father called me, first time in 5 years. His name on my screen felt like finding a spider in your shoe. Renee. His voice was thin, old. You need to stop this. You need to tell them you made it up. I didn't make it up, Dad, and I'm not the one who came forward this time. 7 other people did. Silence. The kind that sounds like a door closing. He hung up. 2 days later, Paige sent a text. 1 line, you're going to regret this. I screenshotted it, forwarded it to my attorney. Didn't reply. Travis posted on Facebook the same week. The truth will come out. I'm innocent. Thank you to everyone standing by me. 847 likes, 112 comments. Praying for you, Travis. We know who you are. Stay strong, brother. I didn't read the comments. Marcus did. He kept the phone away from me and only told me the ones that mattered. There's one from your old coworker at the clinic, he said. She wrote, I believe Renee. 1 comment in a sea of 800. But it was enough. Millbrook split like a log hit with an axe, clean and sudden. Half the town planted their flag with Travis. He was the employer, the sponsor, the handshake at the church picnic. Loyalty to Travis was loyalty to the local economy. These people wore it like a badge. The other half went quiet. But quiet meant something different now. Before silence had been agreement. Now silence was doubt. People who used to wave at Travis from across Main Street started crossing to the other side. Not dramatically, just enough to avoid the conversation. Brooks & Sons Automotive lost 4 employees in 3 weeks. 2 mechanics, the office manager, the part-time bookkeeper. None of them made public statements. They just stopped showing up. At the Methodist church, Pastor Davies didn't mention the case by name, but his Sunday sermon was titled Truth and Accountability, and 3 people told me later that Diane stood up in the middle of it and walked out. Gerald followed her. They didn't come back the next week or the week after. On the Millbrook Community Forum, a Facebook group with 9,000 members, someone posted, if 7 people say the same thing, maybe it's time we listen. 2,000 reactions, 400 shares. The comments turned into a war zone and the moderators shut them down by midnight. I didn't read any of it. Marcus would summarize the positive ones. There's a woman named Carol who says she worked with you at the clinic. She posted a photo of you 2 at the holiday party. She said you were the most honest person she ever met. I didn't need Millbrook to believe me, but it didn't hurt to know that some of them finally did. 7 people. That's what it took. Not 1, not 2, 7. And every single one of them said the same thing to Detective Walsh. I thought I was the only one. If this story is making you think of someone you know, share it with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the thing that changes everything. All right, back to the story. 6 weeks before trial, I drove to Poughkeepsie to meet with the assistant district attorney. Her name was Claire Novick, mid-40s, navy suit, no small talk. She laid out the structure. I would be the first witness called by the prosecution. Not because my testimony was the strongest that belonged to the 7 who came after me, but because I was the one who started it. You opened the door, Renee. The jury needs to understand that. She walked me through the questions she'd asked. It practiced my answers in her conference room while Marcus sat in the hallway with Lily on his lap. My voice cracked on the 3rd run-through. Claire stopped me. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. I drove home and couldn't eat dinner. Marcus didn't push it. He made soup and left it on the counter for when I was ready. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and heard my father's voice. No daughter of mine would do this. 5 years old and still sharp. I wondered what to say when he saw me on the stand. I wondered if he'd look at me or look away. Walsh called me 3 days later, routine check-in, but she mentioned something that knocked the air out of me. I want you to be prepared, she said. One of the 7 witnesses is someone you grew up with, someone close. Who? I can't tell you yet, but you'll know when you see the witness list. I hung up, sat on the edge of the bed, pressed my palms together like I was praying, except I wasn't praying. I was holding Meiselftochter. Trial date, October 14th, 6 weeks away, 3 weeks before trial. I was unloading groceries from the car when I saw the Buick. My mother's powder blue Buick LeSabre parked on my street in Delmare, 3 hours from Millbrook. Deanne was standing on my front porch. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair had gone fully gray. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize. I set the grocery bags on the ground and walked up the steps. We stood 3 ft apart. I'm your mother, she said. Her eyes were swollen. Please don't do this to your brother, don't do this to me. You drove 3 hours to ask me to protect the person who hurt 7 people in our family. I kept my voice low, steady. 7, Mom. 7. They're lying. They're all lying. Travis would never then let the jury decide. She grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were cold. If you testify, I will never forgive you. I didn't pull away. I looked down at her hand on my arm. The same hand that used to braid my hair, that used to hold mine in the church pew, that used to press a cold washcloth to my forehead when I was sick. You haven't forgiven me in 5 years, I said. What's one more thing? She let go. Her hand dropped to her side. Then she looked past me through the open front door into the living room. Lily was sitting on the rug stacking foam blocks. 18 months old, brown curls. Marcus eyes. Diane stared at her granddaughter, her chin trembled. Her fingers twitched at her side like they wanted to reach for something. She didn't say a word about Lily. She turned around, she walked to the Buick, she drove away. 3 weeks later, I saw her again in a courtroom. October 13th. 9:47 p.m. Marcus was asleep. Lily was asleep. The house was doing that thing houses do at night. Settling into its creaks and clicks, the dishwasher humming its last cycle. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water I hadn't touched and opened the nightstand drawer. Aunt Linda's letter, the screenshots, the birthday card with the daisies, the subpoena, all of them in the same drawer, layered on top of each other like geological strata. Each one a different year of the worst chapter of my life. I went to the closet, took out the red scarf, folded it into a neat rectangle, put it in my bag. I didn't need armor. I didn't need a weapon. I just needed the truth and a scarf my grandmother knitted me when I was 10 years old. Marcus woke up at 5. He didn't ask if I was ready. He made coffee, poured 2 cups, set mine on the counter. I picked it up. We stood in the kitchen in the gray early light, and I drank my coffee and he drank his, and we didn't speak because there was nothing left to say that we hadn't already said with 5 years of showing up for each other. At 6:30, we dropped Lily at his parents' house. She waved goodbye from the window and said, "Mama, bye-bye." I waved back, smiled. Then I got in the car and drove south toward Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County Courthouse, Greystone, October sky, 9:00 a.m. The parking lot was full. I counted plates from 4 different counties. Marcus found a spot on a side street 2 blocks away, and we walked in through the back entrance because Claire Novick had told me to avoid the front steps. There might be press, she'd said. Small town case, big implications. Local affiliates are interested. The courtroom was built for 80 people. There were over 120 inside and a line at the door, standing room only. Baifs had brought in extra chairs along the back wall. I walked in and saw the divide. On the left, Marcus and me, Claire Novick, Walsh in a navy blazer, her yellow legal pad on her lap. The 7 witnesses were in a separate room. They'd be brought in one at a time. On the right, the Brooks family. Deanne in a black dress, Rosary in her lap. Gerald in a sport coat that was too big. He'd lost weight. Paige in the row behind them, arms crossed, jaw tight. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She was staring at me. Travis was brought in through a side door. Orange jumpsuit exchanged for a blue dress shirt and khakis. His attorney's choice. He looked thinner, smaller. The last time I'd seen my brother was 5 years ago at that Thanksgiving table, carving the turkey with one hand and resting the other on the back of my father's chair like he owned the room. He didn't own this room. I sat down. Marcus took my hand. I adjusted the red scarf around my neck and looked straight ahead. The judge entered. The room stood. It was beginning. The people call Renee Brooks. I stood up, smoothed my blouse, walked to the witness stand. The courtroom was so quiet. I could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing above the jury box. 12 faces, 6 women, 6 men, all watching. Clarier approached. "Miss Brooks, can you tell us about November 21st, 2021? I told them. I told them about Thanksgiving dinner, about Megan crying in the hallway, about Paige's voice, sharp and low, saying, 'Don't be alone with him,' about sitting on the back porch with a 17-year-old girl who trusted me enough to tell the truth. I told them about the phone call I Madeth next morning, about Detective Walsh's yellow legal pad, about the 6 words my mother said. 'And what happened after you filed the report?' Claire asked. I was removed from my family. My mother stopped speaking to me. My father downed me. My sister called me a liar publicly. The case was dropped. I moved to Albany. I started over. And did you have any contact with the 7 other witnesses prior to their reports?" "None." "Did you encourage, coach, or coordinate with any of them?" "No, I didn't know they existed until Detective Walsh called me 14 months ago. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination. "Miss Brooks, isn't it true you hold a personal grudge against your brother?" I looked at him. Then I looked at Travis. Then I looked at the jury. I have no grudge against anyone in this room. I reported what I knew. That's all I've ever done. On the right side of the courtroom, my mother was crying. My father held her hand and stared at the floor. Paige sat perfectly still. I stepped down. For the first time in 5 years, someone had listened. They came one at a time. Megan first, 22 years old. She walked to the stand with her chin up and her hands clasped in front of her like she was bracing for a wave. She answered every question clearly. Her voice shook twice, but she never stopped. When she finished, she looked at me in the gallery. She didn't smile. She just nodded. One small dip of the chin and walked past. Then Bethany, 20, shorter, quieter. She cried through most of her testimony, but she didn't ask Tostop. When the defense attorney pressed her on a timeline detail, she corrected him with the exact date. She'd kept a journal. Then the third, a cousin I hadn't seen since she was 9. She was 19 now and taller than me. She spoke in a voice so low the judge asked her to repeat herself twice. She did, each time louder. The 4th, the 5th, the 6th. I didn't describe their stories here, and I won't. Each one carried something private to that stand, and it belongs to them. What I will say is this. Each one walked up. Each one said their name. Each one told the truth. And each one sat down and exhaled like they had been holding their breath for years. Detective Walsh took the stand after the 6th witness. She opened her yellow legal pad, the same pad from my kitchen table 5 years ago, the same one from Megan's call 14 months ago, and she walked the jury through the investigation. "I've been working this case for 5 years," she said. 7 victims, all reported independently. None of them knew about the others until this trial. The courtroom was silent. Not the awkward kind, the heavy kind, the kind that presses against your chest. I sat in my seat and counted. 7 people, 7 childhoods, 1 family's silence, and a detective who never closed the file. After the 6th witness stepped down, something broke on the right side of the courtroom. Diane stood up. The bailiff moved toward her, but she wasn't heading for the door. She was facing the judge. "This isn't fair." Her voice was high and dragged. "My son is a good man. You're all lying. You're all lying." The judge's gavel came down hard. "Ma'am, sit down or you will be removed from this courtroom." Gerald grabbed Diane's arm and pulled her back into the seat. She collapsed against him, shaking. The rosary beads clicked as her hands trembled. She said it again, quieter now, into Gerald's shoulder. "I did what I thought was best for my family." I watched her from across the aisle. This woman who had braided my hair, who had taught me to make pie crust, who had stood in her kitchen 5 years ago and told me I was destroying everything she'd built. She was right about one thing. The family was destroyed. But not by me. It was destroyed by every Sunday dinner where the truth sat at the table and nobody acknowledged it. By every group chat message that chose the comfortable lie. By every "don't make this a thing" and every "drop it" and every door that closed on a child who needed it to open. My mother didn't destroy the family by protecting Travis. She destroyed it by believing that protecting Travis was the same thing as protecting the family. It wasn't. The DA stood. The courtroom settled. And then she said the words that changed everything. "The people call Paige Brooks." The air left the room. Diane's head snapped up. Gerald closed his eyes. Travis at the defense table went completely still. Paige stood up from the row behind her parents. Her legs were unsteady. She gripped the back of the bench in front of her. Then she let go and walked to the stand. She was sworn in. She sat down. Her hands were flat on her knees, pressing hard like she was trying to keep herself from floating away. She looked at me, and for the first time in 5 years I saw my sister. Not the person who posted on Facebook. Not the voice that called me a liar. Not the hand that sent back the birthday gift. My sister. The girl I shared a room with until I was 12. The one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. She opened her mouth. Tears ran down her face, but her voice was clear. "I believed you. I always believed you because it happened to me too." The courtroom didn't gasp. It just stopped. Every sound, every breath, every rustle of paper, like the whole room had been submerged. Diane made a small sound, not a word, just a sound. The kind you make when something you've been holding for 30 years finally falls. Paige spoke for 3 minutes. Then she looked at me again. "I called you a liar because if you were telling the truth, then I had to be telling the truth too. And I wasn't ready." I cried. First time in that courtroom. Marcus held my hand so tight I could feel his pulse in my palm. 5 years of silence, one sentence, and the whole courtroom felt it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 11 minutes. We waited in the hallway. Marcus sat next to me on a wooden bench while I stared at the scuff marks on the linoleum. Walsh stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the parking lot like she was guarding the building from the outside in. At 3:22 p.m., the bafe came out. "They're ready." We filed back in. The courtroom was just as full as before. Nobody had left. The 4-person stood. She was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She unfolded the paper. On count 1, guilty. Diane grabbed Gerald's arm. On count 2, guilty. The 4-person read through all 11 counts. Guilty on 9, not guilty on 2. Technicalities in the timeline that the defense had exploited. N out of 11, more than enough. Travis stood motionless at the defense table while the verdict was read. He didn't turn around. He didn't look at his mother. He didn't look at me. When the bafe approached, he held out his wrists without being asked. They led him through the side door, the same door he'd entered through that morning in his blue shirt and khakis. He didn't look back. Diane didn't stand. Gerald pulled her gently, but she shook her head. Paige sat 2 rows behind, arms wrapped around herself. Outside, Walsh walked up to me. Her legal pad was tucked under her arm. "You started this, Renee. 5 years ago, you started this." I shook my head. "No, Megan started this. Bethany started this. They all did. I just opened the door." Marcus put his arm around me. I leaned into him. "Let's go home," I said. Travis was sentenced to 18 years. No possibility of parole for 12. Brooks and Sons Automotive closed permanently. The building on Main Street sat empty for 6 months before a woman from Kingston bought it and turned it into a physical therapy clinic. I thought that was fitting. Healing in the same space that had been built on silence. Gerald sold the house on Maple Ridge Road. Without Travis covering the mortgage, he couldn't keep up. $2,400 a month on a retiree's fixed income. The math never worked. He moved into a one-bedroom apartment above the hardware store. I heard he ate dinner at the diner most nights alone. Diane left Millbrook. She went to stay with a cousin in Scranton, not Linda. Linda cut ties with her sister after the trial. 12 years of carrying someone else's secret will do that. Paige called me 2 weeks after the verdict. The conversation lasted 6 minutes. She didn't apologize. She wasn't ready for that yet, and I didn't need her to be. I'm starting therapy, she said. Good, I said that was the whole call. 6 minutes, 2 sentences that mattered. It was enough. Megan graduated from SUNY New Pulse that spring. She changed her major to social work. I sent her a card. She sent one back. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for going first." Millbrook didn't talk about the Brooks family much after that, but the Methodist Church started a support fund. Anonymous donations, anonymous access, small change, quiet change, the kind that doesn't make the news but reshapes a town one conversation at a time. I didn't go back to Millbrook. I didn't need to. My home was in Delmare with Marcus and Lily and a backyard full of dead tomato plants and a life I'd built from scratch. People ask me if I regret reporting my brother. I don't. I regret that I had to. I regret that 7 other people carried the same secret because my family taught them that silence was loyalty. But silence isn't loyalty. Silence is complicity. And I'd rather be alone and honest than surrounded by people who need me to lie so they can sleep at night. Forgiveness is something I'm working on. But reconciliation, that's a different conversation, and it's not one I owe anyone. That's my story. 5 years of silence, 7 voices, 1 courtroom. If this story reminded you that the truth is always worth telling, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.